Welcome to Roots and Roofs, where we explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship in the real estate world. I am your host, Mackenzie Shelton. Join us as we dive into the unique journey of balancing family life with owning a thriving real estate business. Each episode, we will uncover inspiring stories, practical tips, mindset conversations, and expert insights from others who are carving their paths in the real estate industry. Whether you are a seasoned realtor, a prospective buyer, or simply curious about the dynamics of managing both home and career, Roots and Roofs is your go-to podcast for heartfelt discussions and invaluable advice. Tune in and discover how these incredible women are building deep roots from the ground up while nurturing their families under the same roof. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Roots and Roofs. I have a really exciting guest with me today. Tina, why don't you just take a second to kind of introduce yourself to all of our listeners?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. First of all, hi, I'm Tina Beliveau. I am a real estate agent of 21 years. I am a mom to two sweet kids that are age 2 and 4. I am in the Baltimore, Maryland market and happy to be your go-to for anything in Maryland. And yeah, just like in a nutshell, I have had a real estate team since 2013 with like a very boutique, small batch referral relationship, organic social media approach. Cumulatively, we've sold about 2,000 homes, getting close to 500 million in total volume. And yeah, and I think we connected on Instagram initially, right?
Yeah.
That's what, okay. Yeah. So I pivoted into doing a lot of coaching and teaching for agents about 5 years ago. So I still run my team. I'm out of production. I am very involved in my team, but I don't personally represent clients. I do a lot of everything else happily. So that's me, the short version.
Awesome. Yes. So I actually originally found your podcast.
Oh,
And then started following you on Instagram. And then we've obviously gotten to chat a few times. So I know, isn't it just like so funny how everything kind of comes together, right?
yes. I love that. I didn't realize the podcast connection. So
Yeah.
it's funny. Podcasts are so weird. I'm sure you can agree. Like it's so different than almost any other medium because you just don't know who's listening unless people tell you directly. There's no like comment section generally,
Yeah.
So it's just more like mysterious.
Yes, I agree. I know I always go and look at like how many people are listening, to each episode, but then I'm like, oh, I wish I knew who was listening, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's great when people tell you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So
Okay, so let's get into the questions here. So, you have obviously built a very successful real estate career, and now you're coaching other agents. Like, what was kind of the turning point for you that shifted you from doing real estate to actually teaching others how to grow their business? Was there like a moment there where you were like, this is what I want to do instead?
yeah, it was like an unexpected, yet when you zoom out, totally predictable kind of moment. So the short version of the story of how I ended up making that change, I got my license in 2005. I started in the industry as an executive assistant, got licensed, worked on a team for a couple years, graduated in 2007, built my business through the economic downturn, which was so good for my skill set. And I knew nothing different at that point anyway. And I was like 21, building from, getting people rentals, first time buyers, just like totally. I always love to say, like, don't compare my chapter 20 to your chapter 1, because where I started, I am selling real estate in the area I grew up in, but like I essentially kind of knew nobody. I had no connections, so it's just like, it's amazing what can happen in this business. So I've been in every seat. I ended up leaving the team when I graduated from college, built my business solo. But I'd already like seen early on the modeling of like having an assistant because I was one. So like I just assumed that's what you do when you're successful. So early on, like I got my first intern, then I had like a admin who worked for me 20 hours a week. Then I eventually brought on a full-time admin. And then at that time I was selling like 30 homes a year, and it was very buyer heavy, like 90% buyers. So this was way pre-kids, thankfully. But it was, like it's a lot. And especially in those times, it's so different than like agents who got in the business now. I'm like, no, like people went and looked at 30 houses. there weren't only 3 to look at over 4 months. You know, it's just like, it was
Yeah.
very time intensive from the buy side. So I was already kind of hitting that like burnout, but more like what's next and like, why aren't I, doing more sellers and all of that. So then I went on my journey of like getting a coach and getting really serious about building a team and started building my team in 2013, 2014. And then because I really had so much going for me, like I was so motivated. I had a great coach. I had a really good template. I read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller. Like I was serious. So like I grew my business from like 15 to 50 million over 2 years and
Wow.
did that with 2 buyer agents, 2 full-time admin, and a couple part-time helpers in various capacities, and everybody working very hard and very happily for the most part. And like, it was great, but I was doing like 80 or 90 listings a year, which was awesome. It was my listing agent era. And I am very good at like seller representation and marketing. And that's where I really got into my social media groove because I was just like telling my story, my success stories like all the time. And it was just like very magnetic. It just really drew people to me. But I also got really burned out specifically on the leadership, on both things, the production, but just like the leadership weight. Anyone listening, if you've ever, had one assistant or one, sales assistant or anything, let alone multiple people, like it's a lot harder than it looks like, especially if you're younger and have zero like transferable skills. Like there was a lot with like leading that was normal, but I didn't know that. So like I made a lot of assumptions that it was like a me problem versus like, yeah, this is just hard. And this is like something you have to go through to get better at it. Very millennial of me, like just thinking everything should be so easy, but it was really hard psychologically,
Yes.
spiritually,
I am so glad that you're saying that. I know you and I have briefly talked like about my team,
Yep.
and one of the best things that I've actually done, like for myself personally, but also to like help lead my team better, was joining this group with Diana Kokoska. I think I mentioned it to you,
Yes.
because it's all about leadership, and like I'm getting to like literally be coached by John Maxwell, who is like the leadership guru, of our time,
Yep.
and yes, it is. It's so, I did not realize, to your point, when I started a team, how hard it would be to be a leader. So sorry. Anyway, I didn't mean
No,
to
it's like,
keep going.
no, you're not interrupting. It's so crucial. I'll find a quote later if we have time about that. I'm going to butcher it, but it was basically like when you become an entrepreneur, but specifically a leader, what you don't realize is that you're going to like live out everything you ever needed therapy for. Basically, it said it more artfully, like your attachment issues, your fear of rejection, your need to be liked, your inability to say hard things sometimes when they need to be said. Like that was what was happening. And it was just like being in like a meat grinder, like for me, like emotionally in a lot of ways. Because I also want to be liked and loved and feel good and have other people feel good. So like that was what was happening in my business, like high production. We were number one in my county in volume that year. A lot going on, so much success. And also like, I think when you're really ambitious, and I don't know, I think from a previous conversation, you'll agree with this, but like sometimes when you don't know why you're growing, it's just like, you just keep wanting to do more every year because like someone like me, like I don't want to go backwards, but there comes a point where it's like, okay, like, does the amount of complexity and maintenance it takes to run a business of this size work for me? So I just didn't know. Like I just had to go through that. And then in the middle of all of that, I switched to a Keller Williams office that was like very small and growing in my market. It was very new. This was like a lot, feels like forever ago. It was like 11 years ago, before EXP, before Real, before cloud brokerages. I mean, they exist. I guess EXP existed, but it was like infinitesimal. And so like KW was like innovative at the time. Like teams were not as common. So like it was definitely a revelation. And I very quickly got like very involved in the office. And I don't know how to say this. I think KW offices also really like feed off of people like us who we're burned out and they're like, oh, this would be the perfect person to like pull them out of production and have them run the office instead. It was sort of like I was like a sitting duck for a change. And
I understand what you're saying because I was a KW agent, same time period. 2014 was when I joined. I just left last year. So yeah, I was
okay,
there for
yeah.
10 years.
All right. So people who've been there know what we're talking about. Everyone else is probably like, what in the world? Don't worry about it. So I was approached to become like the co-manager of the office. And it was a very fast growing office. It like had a lot going for it. So I was like, yeah, like, because I wanted to be what they call in that model, like seventh level, like an agent who isn't personally producing and in theory is just like chilling and, making a profit and not,
Chilling
grinding,
in quotes. Yeah.
chilling. Yeah. Chilling on the beach, like people would literally paint that picture. So like I wanted to get to seventh level. I knew that it was going to be such a mental leap for me to go totally out of production, even though what's so funny is like, I went out of buyer production cold turkey on like January 1st, 2014. I remember like I didn't even help my own sister-in-law buy a house. Like I was just like, I'm not going out with buyers. Because I can't anymore. And if I do, it becomes this and then it snowballs. For whatever reason, I couldn't see myself doing that on the listing side. And I know why. It's much more complex. It's harder. It's conversion is much more nuanced. Like you need a higher level person to step in. But I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to force myself to do this. I had someone on my team who had been with me for several years and was very, very good. So she stepped up. I stepped into recruiting, like the KW model as an office manager, you do various things. You train, you coach and consult agents, but your primary role is to recruit. And so, yeah, I had to learn how to recruit and talk to agents, which was not that hard. And I realized like, oh, I love this. Like this podcast, like, let's talk about business. Like we don't need to warm up. I don't need to compliment your house. Like that's fine. But like this is just something that is like a different headspace. And it's like so much more like rewarding. So like I very quickly realized that. And I applied a lot of how I built my sales team to the brokerage, which was not like that innovative for the playbook, but like I was very event and social media heavy. So I just started hosting tons of training events for agents. And that's when I became a good trainer. And I took training classes. They had trained the presenter and KW University. And like, so I learned a lot about how to present. And the other thing I had going for me is like, I am a systems person. I've come to realize I have really intense ADHD. So I've created all these systems to cope and not forget things. And I guess just like have a natural knack for creating systems that like work pretty well and aren't just sort of like a total hodgepodge. So I realized that like so much of what I did was really applicable to agents. And I was teaching agents in my market to like do what I did. And like that was also part of the KW culture of like the abundance mindset and like don't worry about it. And like that's been kind of my ethos ever since. Like I have a course for agents and like half the people who have taken it are in Maryland. And then I have people who have taken it everywhere else, which is so cool. I have a Canadian student right now. But yeah, it was just like a great way for me to discover that was much more my long-term calling and just teaching and educating and inspiring. Like that's what I love to do. And I also love to like get in the weeds with people. So I kind of gave you a long answer to my question, but
no, that was absolutely perfect. That's actually one of the things that I feel like I've also learned and leaned into. I'm going on like year 7, or it'll be year 7 this year, that my real estate team has been in operation, right?
mm-hmm.
And the first few years were a little clunky because I had a business partner and then we parted ways and then I had a baby. And so, I almost kind of look at like the first 3 years as like, I don't know, it was just kind of chaotic. But like the last 4 years has been this like beautiful, I don't know, kind of revelation for myself of like, I actually really like coaching, training, teaching people. And I am shortly probably behind some of the things that you talked about. Like I'm actually trying to get out of production. This is the first quarter that I have not had any closings of my own. And normally I would be in like, if I didn't have a closing in January, I'd be in like full blown panic. And I'm like, no, this is actually okay. Like this is how, kind of the direction that things are supposed to, move towards. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
It takes an iron confidence. I don't even know what I'm trying to say to
Yeah.
withstand that and let go like that. So good for
Yes,
you.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's been like my whole mantra the last couple of years is like just let go of the control because I'm type A, like super I want to like have control over everything. And it's like, nope, it's gonna be okay. Like I can pass things off to my team members that aren't, meant for me and that sort of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Having faith in yourself, among many
Yeah,
other things.
yeah.
So,
So you mentioned your course. Do
yeah.
you want to tell some of the listeners a little about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, sort of on the kind of like the story arc of it all, I ended up leaving the KW world at the end of 2019. The brokerage business was, I discovered, like just another grind. It felt a lot like building a team, but with just way more complexity um, and like the there were a lot of hands in the pie and I was getting like this tiny bit. So, and there were other things too. So it was like, okay, I need to make a change. I identified that I wanted to move to EXP for two reasons. One, because it was the best possible platform for my team and has been. So I've been there 6 years. It's been amazing for me. And very happy. And and I'll say, like, I just want a brokerage that is very well run, that is national, that costs me as little as possible, quite frankly, gives me the autonomy to run my team the way I want, and that I have brokers available whenever I have a problem. And
Mm-hmm.
like that. And there are other things, the fact that EXP's brand has grown is great. The fact that there's so much listing inventory. So if my team members want to host an open house, like it's being with like a very small company with small market share, I think is difficult. So like I do value the big company. It just needs to be a big company that's like run well. So like that's been our story. And I came to EXP in 2020 and rebuilt my team from scratch because I lost my entire team in my exit of KW. Like it was very messy. We don't have time for the
Wow.
story. I have a great podcast episode for anyone who has ever had their team implode, or if it's happening to you or things aren't working, like you can DM me and I will talk to you about it because it's very hard. Um,
Maybe I'll have
but
to have you on for part two to go.
yeah, because the team story, yeah, is powerful. Because I spoke about it on a podcast recently for someone else, and they were just like, a lot of people just don't want to admit this stuff, and I was like, I know, I didn't want to admit it for a long time. Like
Yeah.
I want to be great, and I don't want to publicly fail or not do well, and I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about it. So anyway, so when I came to EXP, I really wanted to chase the dream of doing more in the online space because I love social media. I'm a Facebook girly. That's where I started. It's where I still thrive. I've since gotten very good at Instagram. So that's kind of been, so I came to EXP and I was like, I want to help agents. I want to have a course. I want to do that thing. And I really I want to help agents, and I want to do it in a way where it doesn't matter what brokerage they're with. I don't have to recruit. I don't have to chase people, and I can do it on my terms and be sustainable because I was also very burned out after the recruiting quotas and all the work that went into running. I was running 3 offices at the end with like short staff. So I was just like, I have spent the last 6 years in like burnout recovery, but
Mm.
still, feeling so ambitious and excited about what I really want to be doing. So over the last 6 years, aside from the things I've mentioned, I had my 2 kids. I rebuilt my team and became very obsessed with like, how can I do everything remotely? How can I do things as efficiently as possible? How can I give myself permission to just let it be easy, be lazy, be canny and strategic? Because I hustled my way to insane success. It just wasn't something I could continue. So all of that being said, I launched my course in 2022. So it's been almost 4 years. And I was sort of like, okay, like what can I offer that is, somewhat unique? There's courses for everything and lots of people that do similar things. What people seem to really resonate with me is I'm very tactical and clear about how to actually do things. So I decided to package up everything I do in my business, and make it available for people to not just learn, but to take and like on a template level, like everything. So my back end systems, my checklists, what I do for events, what I do for social media. And because of like COVID and becoming really obsessed with like, how do I do things without going out as much as possible and just like be home with my kids as much as possible, I just started to get a lot more creative with what I did with my social media specifically. So my course is basically like you can buy everything, and everything that I spent 10 years building for myself and for my team is like there. And it's called High Performance Agent Academy. And that's like my brand. So like my Instagram is at High Performance Agent. My podcast is the High Performance Agent podcast. So that's kind of been like the thing that I've been building. And then I've started coaching agents and helping them. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about for a minute today that is like the biggest driver of my team's regrowth, because basically like I lost a big part of my book of business when one particular team member branched off, started her own team, and a lot of people kept working with her instead of me, in spite of, whatever. So like
Yeah.
I had to recoup this enormous like bite taken out of my business. And I was like, how am I going to do this with like a newborn, COVID, like just like people aren't out networking events. Like I don't want to do an open house, like da 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 da. So I did two things. The first thing that I did actually in March 2020, or I get maybe April, right when like everything happened, and I was just planning to do this like big relaunch. I was like, okay, can't do events right now. What am I going to do? So I decided to launch a Facebook group for my clients and really re-engage and connect on that level. And it's more small batch because my client list is only so big, but it was so great and very well received. I still use the group to this day. It has like a very specific purpose, and it's just part of my touch system, right? Like I'm
Sure.
not I'm not going to call and text people incessantly. I'm also not going to like manufacture reasons to reach out to them that are made up. So I figured out how to have a group like fit this piece of a way we can be in contact with each other that isn't marketing or inauthentic. And I was like, oh, I love this. And like, I've always been a Facebook person, like I said. And then as the year progressed, I had this geographically focused group that I actually started in 2015, but hadn't been paying attention to the point where like I didn't have my notifications on. And it had sat there for over 5 years with like 200 people that I had just dumped in it way back when. It was like an augment to my postcards. So I was like, I'm going to start a Facebook group to like expand my farm. And then I just got notifications that the group was randomly growing. I think it was definitely like pandemic, like people were just like searching for stuff more. So the group got like a little bit of momentum, just bits and pieces. And it was just enough for me to be like, oh, like, I don't have my notifications on. Like, what's going on in this group? Like, let me make sure I'm, seeing this. And then I've been in this process ever since then of turning that into a lead generator for me. So between, I guess, 2021 and now, so 5 years, I have completely dialed in how to run a farm through a Facebook group. My team has closed 20 million in volume just from the group, from leads in the group, which is like
Wow.
600,000 in commissions because a lot of it's been listing side, and like, like we, charge a certain amount for our listing commission and build staging and all that. So it's just been like very high profit. We have 10,000 members. So the group is big, but it's not this unachievable number that you couldn't do it too.
Sure.
I've pulled so many people from the group into my database through strategies that I tested, and some things flopped. One thing really worked, and I've just started doing that over and over again on a quarterly basis. I've branded myself. I've become like the mayor of my zip code, which is what I wanted. I sold real estate everywhere for a long time, and we still do, but more and more of our business is in this one zip code where I happen to live, where the average price point is great. If I could just only do it here in the zip code, I would. Like that wouldn't really make sense because people move in and out. You know what I mean? But like it is what I wanted the centerpiece of my business to be. And it's gotten to the point where like I go to the grocery store, I meet people from my group who know my face from being in the group. So my brand is like, I'm definitely the number one associated agent with my zip code. And we've sold a lot of real estate here, but there are also other agents selling plenty. But like the brand that we've built, and really that I've built, and then my team has like, propped up by doing a great job with the production, it's just been like game changing for my business. So that was, as I was building the academy, my group was already thriving, and I built that in. And then I've just been teaching agents how to do it for a really long time. So
Oh my
it's,
gosh. That's such
yeah,
an idea. That's so awesome. I love that.
yeah, it's really doable for the right person. And you don't even need to like Facebook. You need to just not hate it. Cause like groups are different than just like posting and hanging out. Like it's a way to create community. It's a way to give. It's like, so I'm doing this boot camp for people who want to launch their own group. I decided to like do something a little bit outside of my academy, which I haven't done before. So it's like a 3-day like just one Zoom a day for an hour a day over these 3 days where I'm going to help people basically decide what their group should be. What's the strategy? What's the name? What content should I do? How do I capture leads? How do I just get it up and running? How do I grow it? Which is, like one of the main questions people always have once they get exposed to this idea. So I am doing that. So I think you had said you'd be open to sharing that in the show notes. But I'm really
Yes.
excited about it. And yeah, it works.
That is so awesome. Yes. So, anyone who's listening that is interested, the link is going to be in the show notes so that you can get connected with Tina on that. I think that that is such an awesome idea. I actually recently started coaching, and I'm starting very small on this, but one of the agents that I'm coaching, that was actually, he really wants to farm the neighborhood that he lives in, very specifically in Omaha. And that was actually one of the things that he started doing. And now he's actually going out. So he started the Facebook group, and now he's going out and door knocking and like basically saying like, "Hey, I started this Facebook group," and people are actually like, "Oh, I actually already joined it, like this is," I know it's going to be this like really great thing for him, but he would probably definitely benefit from something like that because to be honest, like I live in a super small town and I am like the admin of like our Facebook group that was actually uh gifted, or I inherited it from somebody else who started it, sort of thing.
Yep.
But I'm not even really doing it at like a super high level. It's just more that like we live in a town of 300 people, so everybody knows who I am, sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
That's already handled.
right,
Yeah. I feel
exactly.
like with the groups, there's like certain things people get kind of wrapped around the axle. Sometimes it's how to grow it. Sometimes it's how to market yourself in a way that's like palatable and like works well and feels good for you, feels good for the other people. Some people are like, but how do I get leads? Like, sure, it's nice if everyone thinks I'm so great, but like, how do I actually get leads? How do I grow my database? So that's where I really like dialed a lot of that in. So yeah, so
Yeah.
people like your client or anyone who, if you've ever even had a group, and here's what's so crazy. So this group is called like Living in Blank, the area. And I've for a while wanted to start a subgroup called Moms of in the same area. And I decided to basically do an experiment and launch my own new group in the 3 weeks leading into my boot camp, just to show people how doable this is. And like, they don't even need to compare themselves to my like 5 year group. I'm like, no, look. So like, I started the group 2 days ago. Today's Wednesday, right? I started it Monday afternoon. I promoted it just in my main group, and I already have almost 300 members. And they're
Oh my.
like so excited, and it's like it's like, moms is such a great niche. And one of the million questions people ask me about Facebook groups, they're like, this comes up all the time where they're like, but there's already such and such group and da 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 da. And I'm like, I know, but like 90% of Facebook groups are crap. They're either full of toxic stuff and people don't actually want to be there, or they're unmoderated and they're full of spam, or they exist, but if you go look in them, there's actually nothing happening.
Mhm.
And there's always room for a great niche. And part of what I had to figure out with my group the hard way was how to moderate it and make it positive, because that's like an issue, right? With like social media, like people just love to like get on and like complain. And I had to
Mhm.
kind of figure out like policies and ways to handle that. And now my group is like very tightly moderated. Like every post does have to be approved. We have very like clear rules, and there's certain topics that are just not allowed to be posted about because they always start arguments. I'm sure you
Yeah.
can guess what
Yeah.
they are: crime, politics, area development. People immediately go into
Mhm.
like racist and classist, like, mumblings, like immediately. So
Yeah.
like so I've learned the topics to not tolerate. And then the group is so positive. But the point is, because it's so positive, people love the group. They're so grateful for it. They're like, this
Yeah.
is the only group I like. So I just tell people like, there's always room for another great group, just like there's always room for another great realtor. Look at us. There's a million of us,
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So don't
Absolutely.
let that stop you. I should
Oh,
stop. That's like my sermon, but come talk to
yes.
me about it.
Oh, that is so wonderful, Tina. I know we're kind of running short on time here, but
Yeah.
thank you so much for talking to us just about kind of like your brief journey. I know we could probably spend 3 hours talking about all of that. But I think that your class sounds wonderful, especially for someone who is maybe trying to farm a specific area or something like that. So yeah, we'll make sure to put it in the show notes. And also I'll make sure to put your Instagram and Facebook on there so that people can start following you and seeing all the great stuff that you have going on. So
You're so kind. Thank you. And if I can help you or anyone who's listening with anything, please let me know. So
awesome.
I appreciate
Thank you
you.
so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Roots and Roofs podcast today. If you loved today's episode, please let me know. I love hearing from you on Instagram and Facebook, so feel free to send me a DM or tag me in your stories so I can share it too. If you're looking for more information about today's topic, please visit my website, mahoganyacres.com, and all of the information that is listed in the show notes below. Until next time.